she said بعد شوي, so like it takes a couple of minutes. We're live? Okay, Assalamu alaikum, everyone. We are here with the Passaic County Health Department, featuring our panelists today. We are discussing the COVID-19 situation and all the infectious diseases that we are experiencing in our community and how you can protect yourself in this upcoming season. We have our panelist, Bayan Rashid. She is from the Passaic County Health Department. She is a health educator. We have Dr. Abu Bakr al-Faouri. We have Dr. Ahmed Qatanani. And we have Sheikh Qatanani. And he is also Dr. Muhammad Qatanani. And we have Sheikh Usama Salhiya. Thank you so much for joining us today to discuss this very important issue during this time. We will be holding a question and answer session, so you can post your questions on the Facebook Live, and our panelists will answer them for you. Jazakallah khair. Thank you so much for coming.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Is it on? Assalamu alaikum, everyone. So today, as Rana mentioned, we're here from the Department of Health, Passaic County Department of Health, and ICPC, Patterson and Clifton, Prospect Park, that we will be introducing COVID, how to protect yourself, and infectious disease in general. I will start with a presentation regarding COVID, a little bit of my background. So I have a bachelor in public health and master in public health, global public health and public health nutrition. Today we'll be talking about infectious diseases. What's infectious diseases? The disease caused by an agent such as virus, bacteria, parasite, or fungi. In the past, it was a global health problem and the leading cause of death. For example, smallpox or cholera. In 1918, influenza pandemic killed around 40 million in the world. People globally, advances in nutrition, antibiotics, immunization, food safety, housing, and sanitation, and that has led to massive reduction of infectious diseases. Now we were talking about the stages of infectious disease. The first stage is incubation, which means that it's the period that the body has the germ but not showing the symptoms. Or in Arabic بنحكي فترة الحضانة اللي هو الجسم بيكون بيحتوي على الفيروس أو البكتيريا أو الفطريات بس ما ظهر أي أعراض جانبية. الفترة هاي ممكن تتراوح ما بين ساعات، أيام، ممكن سنوات. For example, if it's hours, it could be like cholera. If it's days, could be flu or COVID. If it's years, could be HIV or AIDS. The second stage is prodrome. The prodrome stage is the stage that's showing non-specific diseases. Could be like headache, slight fever, tiredness. It's not related to the disease itself. And then we will move to the specific disease stage, which has the increase of the symptoms. After that, we have the recovery. The recovery stage has decrease of the symptoms. All these stages that we just mentioned have the germ inside our body, and we can spread and infect others, even though the symptoms is decreasing. And then the stage of health, which means that بإذن we don't have any symptoms. Now we're talking about the disease triangle. It has 3 different elements. First element is environment, which means where is the germ located, or where is surrounding, what environment is living in. The second one is the host, which means the who is the organism, or that can carry, infect, or exposed to the others. Could be a human, could be an animal. The agent means the what is causing the disease. Could be bacteria, virus, fungi, or parasite. If any of these elements is missing, the disease will not occur. If the elements of the disease triangle met, means the disease will occur بإذن. Now we will be talking about how is this disease spreading. There is 2 different ways of the disease spreading. First way is the direct spreading. The direct spreading could be from droplets, from coughing, sneezing, and not covering these cough or sneeze. Could be from touching, kissing, or body fluids exchange. It could be moved from mother to child, unborn or born child, unborn through the placenta, and born through the breast milk. And that, for example, like for the disease could be HIV. The animals can spread the disease and move it to human as well. For example, if you get scratched or bitten by a different animal, like infected animal in the wild, a wild animal in the forest or park or something like that, or maybe you have a cat or a dog at home and not following up with a vet doctor with the vaccines, or not following up with the regular checkups. Insects can transfer diseases as well. So some of the examples can be malaria. The mosquito carries malaria and then bite the human bodies, which inject the bacteria, inject the parasite inside the body. Another example to that is the ticks, which carries bacteria and cause Lyme disease. The indirect spreading can be through droplets as well. So for example, if we cough or sneeze, not covering our cough or sneeze, and then we touch the tabletops, doorknobs, elevator buttons, that can all spread the germs. Touching the face as well, if we cough in our hand and then touch our face, that can cause pimples, acne, and maybe other diseases like respiratory diseases. Through contaminated food or water, can that spread the disease as well. So if we drink or eat food that has germs, that germs can be inside our bodies, and we can spread it to others if we didn't take care of ourselves. If we have to use our personal stuff, for example, toothbrush, fork, and spoon. The people who got infected with any of infectious diseases they will not allow to donate their blood. For example, if they have hepatitis C or HIV, they're not allowed to donate their blood. some of the preventive tips that we recommend to not spread the disease. First, wash your hands correctly. Wash it for 30 seconds. You can like sing ABC, Alif Beta, and practice coughing etiquette, covering the cough and sneeze with your elbow or your sleeve. You must cook your food well. Many of the meats carry salmonella or E. coli that can be infected our bodies as well. So many of us sometimes eat in a restaurant and say, oh, I have like a stomach issue or whatever. So this could be from the infected food. And of course, getting the vaccine. Getting the vaccine is one of the important tips to reduce the infectious diseases. The vaccine itself, if the vaccine didn't get you sick, some vaccines will get you sick. For example, COVID. Many people got vaccine for COVID and got sick after maybe a month, 2 months, 3 months, or a couple of months. But at least the vaccine will not let you go to the hospital for the severe symptoms, or you will not die. The last one is the most important. If you are traveling outside of the United States, make sure the country that you are going, showing that, for example, share that with your medical doctor to see if that country supposed to have like a regulation for like a quarantine, isolation, social distancing, maybe wearing a mask or getting a vaccine. For example, going to Kenya, you must get a malaria vaccine before you go. If you didn't get the malaria vaccine, it's up to you. This is a case study that we can share. Inshallah, the people in the live can help us to solve that one. Okay, so the case study says, Steve is 19 years old, complaining of fever, fatigue, and nausea. Reports having no appetite. Steve has taken ibuprofen or Advil, but does not feel relief. Doctor recommended over-the-counter flu medication since he has flu-like symptoms. How to prevent the spread of disease? Sister Rana, can you watch the questions in the live?
Sure.
No, in the end.
At the end.
This is like an activity.
Oh, okay. So what do I do?
Just watch the.
I'm monitoring it. I'm monitoring it. No one is.
Okay, so it's okay. I can answer the question. So for how to prevent the spreading the disease, if we have any of the symptoms, stay home till the symptoms relieve. Don't go outside till the symptoms resolved. Wear the mask if you have like to go outside. Practice social distancing. And of course, do not share your personal stuff with others. Your toothbrush is yours. Your fork is yours. Your mug is yours. Do not share it with others. And the other case is Peter is 45 years old. He's seeking treatment for his chronic hepatitis C. He was diagnosed with a disease a few years ago, but he's not sure when he contracted it. He doesn't remember having any symptoms related to the infection. He has never received any treatment for hepatitis C. So as we see here, Steve might be the first case, have like flu symptoms, which means it's not really specific symptoms. It could be the prodrome stage and we just explained, which is not really symptoms related to the disease itself. For the second stage, the he doesn't know he has a hepatitis C. He doesn't have symptoms. He never went to treatment, which means he's in the incubation, could be having that disease for multiple years and he doesn't know. The question is, how does the disease spread? So since he's in the incubation and he doesn't know that he is infected with hepatitis C, and many of the hepatitis C transferred or spread through body fluids like blood, saliva, or practice like sexual contact. The second one is the chart explaining about infectious disease by township in Passaic County. So as we see here, and by the way, this is a statistic that from 2019 to 2021, which is during COVID, since the COVID started till now. This statistic is not including COVID. The highest percentage of the townships that we have here is Patterson, 30.4%. And the lowest township has the diseases is Prospect Park, which is 0.4%. Now, this chart is talking about the infectious diseases in the same period of time in Passaic County, from 2019 to 2021. The highest percentage of infectious disease in general is influenza, 41%, and hepatitis C is 40%. As we see here, that the two cases that I just gave, talking about influenza and hepatitis C, that's why I gave these two cases, because these are the highest diseases in Passaic County, not including COVID. And I just want to mention something, that all these diseases are the people who got infected or reported the illness. So for example, people went to the doctor, went to the clinic, went to the hospital, they being reported that they are ill. Many of us get a flu or maybe just cold, basic cold, and they don't go to the doctor or the hospital and just like be home and drinking Casit Miramia or something like that. So these people not reported in this statistic. The people reported is only the people infected and reached a medical treatment. Now, as we see here, all the infectious diseases, not including COVID, the second chart, which shows that this part here, the multiple of colors, shows all the diseases that we saw in the previous slide, including COVID. So this chart showing that all the diseases, including COVID, means that influenza and hepatitis C is not showing there anymore. They still exist, they're still there. But with COVID, COVID has the highest cases, highest infected rate in Passaic County. So as we see here, all the infectious diseases is barely noticed comparing with COVID. So since we just kept touch in COVID, now I would like to welcome our panelists to talk about infectious diseases and COVID specifically. First, I would like to welcome Dr. Qatanani. He's the Imam of ICPC, Islamic Center of Passaic County in Patterson. And he will be talking about the rule of Islam, how they're limiting the infectious disease.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. حياكم الله جميعا إخواني والمشاهدين والمتابعين وأسأل الله أن يبارك فيكم. We welcome you all. We thank you very much, Sister Bayan, for this beautiful lecture and very important information. We thank our guests, Dr. Ahmed, Dr. Abu Bakr, and Fadilat al-Sheikh Osama. Thank you very much, Sister Rana, for facilitating and helping us to have this lecture, which is very important for everybody, for our community. Talking about الأمراض المعدية وكيفية الوقاية منها، وإن شاء الله نريد أن ننشر هذه المعلومات إلى جاليتنا الطيبة المباركة سواء باللغة الإنجليزية أو باللغة العربية. So we will إن شاء الله in our lecture combine between Arabic and in English. But we have Sheikh Osama, inshallah, he will start sending the message, very short message, inshallah, about the importance or the مفاهيم الإسلام أو مفهوم الإسلام في التعامل مع الأمراض المعدية. الإسلام الحمد لله رب العالمين منهج حياة أيها الأخوة. Islam is a way of life. We know how to live our life according to the beautiful teachings of Islam. The teachings of Islam talking about our health, our wealth, our family, our relationships, our body, our soul. This is what is special about Islam. So inshallah we'll be with our Sheikh Osama, inshallah, to talk about a message about Islam and how to protect the community, how to protect our health. وجزاكم الله خير. شيخ أسامة.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. أما بعد, first off, we thank the Passaic County Health Department for offering this program to our community, and especially at a very critical time with the kids going back to school and with coronavirus cases on the rise again. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect us all from this new variant, the Delta variant, and anything else that awaits us in the future. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us afiyah, to bless us with well-being and continued well-being. Allahumma ameen. So, Jazakallah khair, Ustaz Bayan Rashid, for coming to present this to our community, and to the respected doctors, Dr. Ahmed and Dr. Abu Bakr, and of course, our beloved Sheikh, Sheikh Qatanani, for introducing me. There's a lot to say, but I want to send a quick message. Our community's been through so much in the past 2 years. There is a huge learning curve about public health and how to take precautionary measures for our community. A lot of things that perhaps many of us, most of us, did not consider before the pandemic. And in actuality, these teachings are actually found in our Islamic tradition. From the time of the companions, in fact, from the time of the Prophet ﷺ himself. This understanding of quarantining, this understanding of not allowing oneself to be exposed to harm. And that's actually what the essence of tawakkul is all about. Tawakkul is exhausting the means and then relying upon Allah and trusting in Him with what happens beyond those means. But I have to follow those means, or else I cannot be someone who truly trusts in Allah. Because Allah Azza wa Jal has put the means at my disposal, and He is Rabbul Asbab, Subhanah. So, when it comes to following the means, one of the hadiths that are often cited about this is the Prophet ﷺ telling the companions on what to do if one of the camels has an infestation, a skin infestation. It was a very contagious skin infestation. It was Jarabul Ibil. And these are scabies. This is a skin infestation that is highly contagious. And the Prophet ﷺ said to the companions, لا يريد ممرض على مصح. You should not put a sick camel, one of the camels that has the skin infestation, with healthy camels. Because if you do that, then the reality of qadar which is one that is in line with the asbab dunyawiyya, is going to be that there's a great likelihood that all of them will become sick. And in fact, this understanding was part of the fiqh of the Sahaba, especially the most knowledgeable among them, like Sayyidina Umar. Sayyidina Umar, during his khilafah, he had to deal with a plague, Ta'un Amwas, that struck Bilad al-Sham, the lands of Greater Syria. Sayyidina Umar was on his way actually to visit Sayyidina Abu Ubaidah and his army as they were in Bilad al-Sham. But before he actually reached there, news of the plague spread. So the people that were with Sayyidina Umar, they said, "O Amir al-Mu'mineen, you should not go inside this land because it's a land that has a plague. You should go back to Medina." So then the Prophet, so then Sayyidina Umar set his heart on returning back to Medina. And when Sayyidina Abu Ubaidah, Amr ibn al-Jarrah, he heard about this, he was actually upset with Sayyidina Umar. Why would you do this? أَفِرَارًا مِّن قَدَرِ اللَّهِ يَا عُمَرَ? Are you fleeing from the decree of Allah? So Sayyidina Umar told him, لو أن غيرك قالها يا أبا عبيدة. If only someone else said these words, because you, as the leader, should have a fiqh and understanding that this is actually what our beloved Prophet ﷺ taught us to do. So he then gave him an explanation. He said to him, أرأيت لو كان لك إبل هبطت لو كان لك إبل هبطت واديا له عدوتان إحداهما خصبة والأخرى جدبة أليس إن رعيت الخصبة رعيتها بقدر الله وإن رعيت الجدبة رعيتها بقدر الله? He said to him, what are you talking about? If you had camels and there was two sides of a valley, one of them very rich and green, having a lot of greenery that will nourish the camels, and you feed them from that very rich side of the valley, you do so by the qadr of Allah. And if you were to choose to feed them at the very, very barren side of the valley, that you would also do so by the qadr of Allah. He said, then told him, نَفِرُّ مِنْ قَدَرِ اللَّهِ إِلَى قَدَرِ اللَّهِ. We go from the decree of Allah to the decree of Allah. But the decree of Allah is within our means. So brothers and sisters, I want to thank again the health department for this offering this important opportunity to raise awareness. Our deen teaches us to be very conscious of how our behavior impacts those around us, and this is a very important thing to keep in mind, especially with the days to come and our children going back to school. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to continue to bless us with afiyah and well-being. Allahumma ameen, Allahumma ameen. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
جزاك الله خير شيخ أسامة، أسأل الله أن يبارك فيكم. الرسالة أيها الأخوة باللغة العربية لجاليتنا المباركة، بل لجميع وعموم المسلمين. يا إخواني ويا أخواتي، أولا نحن الحمد لله الآن في عافية وفي نعمة من الله عز وجل، لذلك علينا أن نحمد الله وأن نشكره على نعمه، ونشكر الله عز وجل على الفاكسين، على المطعوم الذي الحمد لله خفف وصرف كثير من البلاء، ولذلك قولوا الحمد لله رب العالمين. ولذلك نصيحتي إلى كل من يستطيع أن يأخذ الفاكسين المطعوم أن يأخذه، ففيه مصلحة، ونحن في هذا الأمر نسمع لذوي الخبرة ولذوي العلم والفهم. بعض الإخوة يطلبون منا رسالة من أجل أن يعفوا من هذا المطعوم أو الفاكسين. الحقيقة نحن لا نعطيه، ونرشد الأئمة والمساجد أن لا تعطيه. المصلحة في أن نأخذ هذه المطعومات اللي هو الفاكسين للكورونا ولكوفيد 19، والحمد لله ثبتت نجاعته وثبت والحمد لله قلت نسبة العدوى كثيرا. وإن شاء الله سنسمع من أحبابنا الدكاترة إن شاء الله دكتور أحمد ودكتور أبو بكر يحدثون عن هذا الجانب. وكنا من فترة بفضل الله عز وجل قد أحضرنا أو كان معنا في محاضرة بعض الإخوة الخبراء في هذا الجانب وينصحون أن نأخذ هذا المطعوم. هذا الأمر إخواني من قوانين الأخذ بالأسباب التي هي واجبة في الشريعة الإسلامية. لا يجوز عدم الأخذ بالأسباب الشرعية التي تؤدي إلى نتائج فيها مصلحة ودفع مفسدة. لا ينبغي لأخ ولأخت أن يعتمد نظرية المؤامرة أو الإشاعات، نظرية المؤامرة والإشاعات المغرضة وغير الصحيحة والتي ليست مبنية لا على دراسات ولا على علم ولا على بحث علمي ولا مأخوذة من خبراء وعلماء. يعني يجب على المسلم أن يسأل كما قال الله عز وجل: فاسألوا أهل الذكر إن كنتم لا تعلمون. وأهل الذكر هم أهل الاختصاص، أهل الخبرة والعلم، هم الذين يسألهم، مش بنسأل عن طريق الواتساب وبعض الله أعلم مصادر المعلومات التي تسمعونها. فاسمع إلى طبيبك، استرشد برأيه، استرشد ثم علينا أن نعود إلى نفس الملاحظات التي قلناها سابقا. ما زالت العدوى موجودة، ذلك لابد من النظافة، لابد من إذا كان إنسان عنده بعض الأعراض أن يجنب نفسه وأن يبتعد عن التجمعات، أن لا يذهب إلى المسجد، لا يذهب إلى المدرسة، لا يذهب إلى العمل، وأن يخبر طبيبه أو من حوله بوجود هذه الأعراض التي قد تكون معدية. فعلينا أن ننتبه. وفهمنا من المعلومات السابقة والخطب والدروس أن الإنسان إذا كان مريضا بمرض معدٍ ولا سمح الله ذهب إلى جمع من الناس في عزاء أو فرح وهو يعلم أنه مريض بذلك المرض، أو يمكن أن يكون مريض، مش شرط أنه ثابت، لكن يمكن يكون مريض لأنه بعض الأعراض من الحرارة أو الأعراض الكورونا أو أي مرض، فيجب عليه أن يجتنب حضور الناس. وهذا الحديث الذي أشار إليه الشيخ أسامة قبل قليل في قوله تعالى صلى الله عليه وسلم: لا يورد ممرض على مصح. يعني المريض الذي مرض مرضا معديا لا يأتي ويجلس مع الأصحاء لأنه سينقل إليهم المرض. وهذا من قانون إسلامي عظيم جدا، مبدأ من مبادئ الإسلام، وهو وجوب الأخذ بالأسباب. وجوب الأخذ بالأسباب، التوكل على الله عز وجل. بعض الناس بيقول لك توكل على الله، نقول له إذا كنت متوكلا على الله تأخذ بالأسباب. أما أن تعتبر نفسك متوكلا على الله وأنت لا تأخذ بالأسباب فهذا تواكل. وهذا الذي قال فيه عمر رضي الله عنه لأولئك القوم الذين جلسوا ولم يتحركوا لطلب الرزق أو للعمل، قال: أنتم متواكلون ولستم متوكلين. التوكل على الله يحتاج إلى عمل، فندعو الجميع إلى الاهتمام. خذ بالاحتياط، سواء كل ما سمعناه سابقا من غسل اليدين والتقليل من الهاجينج والكيسينج والتسليم قدر المستطاع. أيضا إذا إنسان بده يروح على أي حفل أو إلى آخره، إذا كان عنده أي أعراض ما زال يأخذ بها، أي يأخذ بالأسباب التي ذكرناها سابقا. أذكر حديث الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم الذي أيضا ذكرناه سابقا، وهو أن الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم قال: إذا وقع الطاعون وأنتم في أرض فلا تخرجوا منها، وإذا وقع وأنتم خارجها فلا تدخلوا إليها. فهذا أصل الحجر الصحي الذي أشار إليه النبي وأخذ به الصحابة وأخذت به الأمة على طوال 1400 سنة. وهناك علماء كتبوا في الأمراض المعدية وكيفية التعامل معها. سبحان الله، أمة محمد أمة واعية، أمة تعرف كيف تتعامل مع القوانين الكونية ومع الأسباب الخلقية. فآخر شيء أيها الإخوة، يعني أختم بأن الإنسان إذا مرض أو صار أي شيء فهذا من قدر الله، وعليه أن يأخذ بالأسباب في العلاج. فقال صلى الله عليه وسلم: تداووا عباد الله فما خلق الله داء إلا وخلق له دواء عرفه من عرفه وجهله من جهله. فالدواء موجود، والله سبحانه وتعالى إن شاء الله يدفع هذا الوباء وكل وباء، والبشرية توحدت مع بعضها البعض لمصلحة صحة الإنسان، وهذا من فضل الله عز وجل. وهذا ربما من بركات هذه الأمراض التي تجمعنا دائما كبشر على مصالح إنسانية واحدة. فمرة ثانية أشكركم على حسن استماعكم، وأعتقد أنه نحتاج إلى الاستماع للدكتور أبو بكر والدكتور أحمد. فجزاكم الله خير وبارك الله فيكم أجمعين.
Thank you, Dr. Qatanani, for this speech. And thank you, Sheikh Osama Salhiya. He's the Imam from Islamic Center of Passaic County, Clifton. And mashallah, Dr. Qatanani عرف عنك يعني. Thank you so much for this great speech. And now we will be moving to our doctors. Dr. Abu Bakr al-Fa'ouri, he's infection preventionist at Preakness Healthcare Center. And Dr. Ahmad Qatanani, he's the internal medicine resident at Hackensack University Medical Center.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Again, first off, thank you to the Islamic Center of Passaic County for holding this important discussion with the community, and certainly for the Passaic County Health Department for this great initiative. I think in order to move forward and talk obviously about infectious diseases and specifically the COVID, it's important for people to have a basic understanding of how your body responds to disease. So whenever you're born, your body basically has on all of its cells, your red blood cells, your muscles, your tissues, indicators for the body that this is a cell that belongs to you. And then it sort of makes antibodies, which are the way for the system to fight foreign objects in your body. So when someone breathes in pollen, for example, it is an overreaction of the body to a foreign object. We call those antigens. And when you're exposed to these antigens, which the word antigen just means any kind of form or factor or something that the body is trying to recognize what it is. If it's foreign, it responds to it generally and firstly with antigens. Antigens are Y-shaped proteins that you can think of them as a sort of a mugshot. The body has mugshots of foreign objects. It walks around like a police officer and tries to find foreign objects. If it finds a foreign object, it attaches to it on the Y end of the shape, and then the other end, it activates the immune system of the body. So these antigens are the most important thing, or one of the most important things in your immune response as a body. Now the idea is whenever you take a foreign object, the body will break it down, and it will usually break it down into small bits of proteins and create the antigens, so this police fighting force against the antigens. And then it will make millions and billions of copies of these antigens so that the next time you're exposed to it, you're ready. Now here's what happened with COVID. COVID had an insane ability, subhanAllah, to enter your lung cells and create a response by the body where it floods your lungs. We call that acute respiratory distress syndrome. So most of the patients who die from COVID don't necessarily die because of the virus. They die because of the body's response to fight the virus in the lungs. This ARDS, acute respiratory distress syndrome, has a very high mortality rate, 40% sometimes. There are other conditions that cause this, but certainly COVID caused it at a much higher rate. The idea of why the vaccine is so important is that if you already have antigens in your antibodies in your body to fight the virus as soon as it enters you, it doesn't allow the body to have time to respond in this scorched earth mentality that we're calling ARDS, acute respiratory distress syndrome. And that's why the vaccine is so important. It activates your immune system. It gives it a head start that you wouldn't have had, and that unfortunately many people did not have. I was a resident, an intern, last year when COVID hit, and I can tell you it was one of the most difficult times. Again, I was sort of thrown right into it, and subhanAllah, we had no way to treat it. There was no way to treat COVID, and most viruses are not like like bacteria. Bacteria are much larger. There are ways for us to attack bacteria. Viruses are so small, they're technically not living creatures because they can't multiply on their own. And unfortunately, there were way too many patients that were fully talking, because your brain is fine when you have COVID for the most part. And there are so many patients who can't breathe, and the families are doing what? Are literally saying goodbye to them on FaceTime because they cannot be in the hospital with them. This vaccine is a truly, I would say it's the equivalent of landing on the moon. Landing on the moon was considered one of the greatest achievements of America, right? And eventually Russia. But subhanAllah, this vaccine is of that equivalent. And it's so important for us to be able to help our immune system fight it with these antibodies. One more quick note, inshallah, and why boosters are going to be the next big conversation and topic. Your body forgets. Just like if you work out and you don't work out your muscles, eventually your muscles will get weaker because they haven't been activated. A booster gives your body more sort of training so that you don't run out of these antibodies. And I think it's, inshallah, it's something that will be discussed later in this year. The antibodies are shown to decrease after a certain amount of time, and boosters are certainly something that we will eventually need to be doing. If you guys have any questions, you can post it in the Facebook comments, inshallah. And I will hand it over to our dear Dr. Abu Bakr al-Fawri.
Thank you, Dr. Ahmed. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I just want to start by saying that this pandemic is like nothing we've seen before, at least in recorded history since the Spanish flu in the early 1900s. And as Bayan said, there were about 40 million people who died from the Spanish flu in, I think it was 1918, correct me if I'm wrong. Just to put things into perspective, and for everyone listening at home, as of today, 164,326 people have been tested positive for COVID. Out of that 164,326, 1,524 have passed away from COVID. In the time that we did this 1-hour presentation, about 63 people have died from COVID. And in the next half hour, 30 will die from COVID. The amount of devastation that this virus has caused on the world, just from a medical, social, and economic standpoint, is disastrous. We're here in the United States. There's a population of 333 million people living in the United States. Out of the 333 million, only since the beginning of the pandemic until now, I want you to think about this, 333 million is the total. Out of that total, only 31 million have, as what we know of, because nothing is perfect. These are the people that came, tested positive, and got treatment. 31 million have only been infected. That's 31 million out of 333 million. If you do the math, that's only 11% of the US population. And out of that 31 million that have been infected, 633,000, and that number could be different today, it could be a little higher, have passed away from COVID. So we have not even reached an infection, like the total population, half of it hasn't even been infected yet. We're not even at 25%, and we've lost more than 500,000 people. Now, what can you do to prevent this? As the doctor talked about, he said vaccination, as well as all the other forms of mitigation. But there's one thing you need to understand. The longer we go unvaccinated, the more this virus will thrive. A virus has two goals in life: replication and infection. It wants to infect. It wants to replicate. There is no stopping the virus. The only way to stop the virus is, to quote Dr. Pruden from St. Joe's, he said that the only way to stop this virus would be for the world to shut down for 6 weeks, for everyone on the planet to stay inside or at least within their own social circle for 6 weeks. The virus will have no place to go. That's how he put it. And he also said there's no way that you can do that. And obviously you all know, imagine every government in the world agreeing on something. It's virtually impossible. Now, what I want to talk about is mutation, because now as the doctor said, we're going to start talking about boosters. Everyone's probably wondering, well, why should I take a booster? I already took 2 shots. That's great, but this virus is like all other viruses. Eventually, you're going to need a booster, or you're going to need one after a long period of time or a short period of time, depending on how this virus acts. You're going to need something to boost your immune system again. Now, why does this happen? Think about, why do you take the flu shot every year? Or why do doctors recommend it's taken every year? Because the flu, according to the science out there, likes to mutate very frequently. There are some studies that show it mutates every month. So by the time we come out with a booster or for a vaccine for it the next year, we're already running behind. In 2019, there were at least 2 different strains of flu. So if you got the shot and you ended up getting the flu, you either got the other strain or it was just the regular flu, but you survived. So that's one of the main important points of a vaccine, is to prevent death. Number 1, prevent death. Nothing can prevent death, but it'll give you a high chance of not ending up on a ventilator and dying. Number 2, the other goal is for you not to end up so sick that you end up going to the hospital and being put on a ventilator. Number 3, to try and decrease the spread. And number 4, in some cases, not getting infected based on your exposure. Now, what makes coronavirus different than the flu? And everyone loves to compare it to the flu. Now, the incubation period, as Bayan spoke about earlier, is longer for coronavirus. The flu, let's say you get infected on Wednesday. You don't know. It takes about 2 days, the incubation period. On Wednesday, you get infected. By Friday, you'll show symptoms, and what will you naturally do? You'll stay home. You'll self-medicate. You'll go to the doctor, so you'll get treated. The problem is with the coronavirus, there were people that were walking around for almost a week not knowing they had it, and they were spreading it. So you cannot compare this to the flu. It's a virus, yes, but it's a different family. Now, let me show you a visual of how mutations work and how vaccines work with it. So I'm going to use this Rubik's Cube. I'm sure this looks very familiar. I don't know if the camera, they can zoom in on it. A virus will continue to mutate, and a virus loves to look different so it can trick our immune system. Now, our immune system is like an army. This army is protecting your body all the time, 24/7. Now, when a new virus comes into your body, it's basically an enemy crossing behind enemy lines, and it starts doing damage and replicating in your body. And with the coronavirus pandemic, our bodies had never seen that version of the coronavirus before, because it mutated so much our immune system couldn't detect it. Now, the first variant of coronavirus was B.117, I believe. That was the original one that caused the pandemic in 2020. Let's say it looked like this. Just pretend it looked like this. And the vaccines we made are built to recognize this. Let's just say that this is the virus. Now, what happens every time it infects a different body and infects a different person who's unvaccinated especially, it'll change. It will mutate. And then eventually, now, as we're speaking today, and as the doctor told me, there's apparently a new variant that just came out. It was Mu. There was Mu this week, and then Gamma last month, and now we're dealing with Delta, which is 99% of the infections. Now, this is how you keep getting variants. And then over time, it just continues to mutate again and again and again until eventually it's unrecognizable to our immune system. And our immune system can't recognize it, which is why a booster is important. And I just wanted to show you how this goes, and if the doctor would like to add anything.
No, I think it's a good idea.
Okay. It's very important to understand that vaccination, wearing masks, is very important to prevent this virus from spreading. We can't stop the virus. The virus is not going away. We have to learn to live with it. And the way we live with it is being careful and getting vaccinated. It is very important. Not just, you might be a young man, you think, oh, I don't need it. What about the 65-year-old you come in contact with? Now the Delta strain is infecting youth. It now has, according to a study done in Oxford, it has a 2.5 more times likely to infect someone middle age. So I urge everyone to get vaccinated. I urge everyone to educate themselves. Please go to reputable sources such as New England Journal of Medicine, Johns Hopkins Medicine, Harvard Medical. Don't go on YouTube. Don't listen to the conspiracy theories. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ahmed Qatarani and Dr. Abu Bakr al-Faouri. Now we're going to open it for the questions, and Sister Rana have to speak.
Thank you so much to our panelists for bringing into perspective our dear Shuyukh for introducing the Islamic perspective of this situation, and our doctors and Sister Bayan for introducing the health and scientific aspect. Now we would like our audience to please submit their questions if they have any. We are monitoring right now as they speak.
The audience has any questions they can ask.
Does the audience have any questions? Okay. Okay, so. No, I just want to thank everyone here and the Passaic County Department Board of Health, inshallah.
Isn't that what you wanted? نعم.
Dr. Qatarani mentioned that we can do mixed.
I think we
Okay.
Okay. So maybe you can repeat the question.
Inshallah, the question was asked regarding particularly information about children, and specifically now that kids are going back to school, there are certainly many children who have siblings who are immunocompromised, such as children with cancer. And as we have a similar question in the comments as well regarding now. So obviously, it's a complicated subject, first and foremost, because of the fact that the decision was made that kids are allowed to go back to school. I would say that if there is a scenario where there is a sibling of someone going to school who is immunocompromised, that there could be some way that this child does their schooling from home. And we saw it was doable over the past year, particularly. Mm-hmm. So let's. Yeah. Okay. So. Yeah. Okay, so basically the sister is saying that now many schools have stopped doing the hybrid model, and many students are forced back into school, and obviously with still the variant going on and the vaccine, yet we don't have any data about a vaccine for children under 12 years old. So first and foremost, for people asking online, right now you can vaccinate children 12 years or older. There is data that has come through that showed that it is safe and efficacious and effective for children 12 and older. So I would recommend, based off the research data, that children 12 and over should get the vaccine. Now for children 12 and under, unfortunately, we just haven't tested it. Not that the vaccine won't work for them, we just haven't tested it because of the constraints of what you need to do for a clinical trial. What I would say is this. Firstly, one of the reasons why children are have less symptoms because of COVID is because of the receptors on the lung cells that the virus enters through, one of which is called the ACE receptor. Children have less of that. And so that's one of the reasons why children are not don't have as much symptoms as adults. Their lung physiology is different. And their body because it's healthy, it doesn't feel the need to respond in what I was telling you about, which was that acute respiratory distress syndrome. Now, I'm not a pediatrician, so I do adult medicine, and this question will certainly, I would recommend it to be forwarded to the pediatrician. So it would depend, I would say, first on what kind of immunocompromised this patient is. So if the sibling has cancer, what type of cancer? Are they getting chemo? Are they getting radiation? It would be also an assessment by the oncologist to decide how immunocompromised that. So I think for the question that you're bringing, it is not as unique, but it's certainly unique enough that it needs a unique solution. One that for me, it would be a multidisciplinary team between the oncologist of the child with cancer, between the pediatrician who cares for both of them. Certainly, the school should be involved in this decision, and I do believe there should be exceptions made. That's my personal opinion, but I'm not in charge of any board of education or any school. But certainly, for the question that was online, children 12 and older, we do recommend that they get the vaccine, and the data on that is clear.
Just to add on to what Dr. Ahmed said and your question, like he said, that you need to have, for special cases where there's an immunocompromised person or someone with cancer or etc., always the doctor should be involved in decision making. And in regards to your concern about schools, now, there's a lot of people now, they're voicing their opinions at the PTA meetings and calling the schools about masks. Your concern is absolutely important, and by all means, you should definitely speak to the student's teacher, to the school. You should definitely call the school, call the Board of Education, because that's a legitimate concern when you have someone who's immunocompromised in the house compared to people who don't feel comfortable wearing masks to protect others.
Okay, so I've had, does that answer your question? I just want to, okay. What I wanted to talk about, and this is to the general public, about, I've had hundreds of conversations with patients. So both in the hospital, when someone comes in, we try to talk to them and convince them to take the vaccine before they leave the hospital. Certainly people that have other diseases that make them more susceptible to a negative reaction to COVID, and certainly in the office. And my advice to everybody home is, I understand the distrust of the system, the distrust of big corporations that want to make money over this. But here's what I want to make you confident about. As a physician, any decision I make about anything, we use something called evidence-based medicine. What does that mean? Who here has high blood pressure? Does anybody here have blood pressure? Well, people have high blood pressure. Anybody who has high blood pressure. There are over 5 to 10 different types of blood pressure medication. And of each of those types, there's maybe, or classes, each of those have 5 to 10 different types. So there are over 50 blood pressure medication I can give you. But I go and I see this medication, this study said
We took 10,000 people, 5,000 of them, we gave them this medication, and the other 5, we gave them this medication. It's a randomized controlled trial. That is the way we make decisions in medicine. We test these medicine and see which one decreases your blood pressure more. Which of these have less side effects? It's not a test in the sense that, oh, we're testing on people. No, we know that these 2 medications work on decreasing blood pressure, but we want to see which one works better. This is called evidence-based medicine. I'll give you another example. People who had developed clots, but they also can, if we give them a blood thinner, if they fall, then God forbid they have a bleed in their head, and that turns into a worse thing. So we tried to treat one disease, but we ended up causing another. In medicine, we take a look at thousands of researchers, thousands of trials, and we make a decision based off of that. The way we make decisions about anything in medicine is the same exact way we make decisions about COVID, whether it's any of the medications or whether it's about the vaccine. So I can guarantee you, if God forbid someone broke their leg, if someone can't breathe, if they're having chest pain, they're coming to the hospital. We're treating those things the same exact way, and that you trust us with, the same way that we are treating coronavirus and COVID. And so my advice to everybody here and at home, trust your medical professionals. The coronavirus is a virus that we knew about. It happened in China with the first SARS pandemic, and it happened in the Middle East during 2000, I think it was around 2004 or 2005, the MERS, the Middle East Respiratory Syndrome. It is literally the same virus, but just as Dr. Abu Bakr showed with the Rubik's Cube, it has different proteins on its surface. So we are not working blindly here. We have years and decades of data, of research, of knowing about these viruses, how they react. And again, like I was talking earlier, getting this vaccine done in the time that we did is like going to the moon. And one of the ways, for example, that we made this vaccine so good is when we give you the information to create these antibodies, we needed to find a way to deliver it to your body without it being broken down. And there is a two Turkish scholarly scientists who are married, a husband and wife, who are the inventors of this amazing technology of using a lipid, a fat circle, literally a butter circle to help deliver the vaccine into your body. It was a feat of innovation and engineering and science, and a major one. Again, I'm a nerd and a geek, so to me this is amazing. To people at home may not realize, and as many of you know, that these Turkish couple were Muslim. And they are the ones who helped develop the way that the Pfizer vaccine gives you the vaccine. So there's so much science, so much knowledge. There's a lot that you can learn. But I really encourage you to have a long discussion with your physician. I encourage you to trust the medical community, that I know you would trust them if you had chest pain, if you had shortness of breath, and you came into the hospital. And I hope, inshallah, that you continue doing so. And I can promise you that as a physician, our #1 goal, and we take an oath on this when we graduate medical school and start our work, do no harm, to not hurt any human being. That is our very first goal in life. Jazakumullah khair.
Just wanted to add a couple of things. You brought up some interesting points because we didn't cover this too much about the safety of the vaccines and the distrust that people have to the vaccines and the corporations. First of all, what Dr. Ahmed mentioned about the mRNA technology that the 2 doctors developed, which now is a part of the Pfizer vaccine. It's called mRNA vaccines. This technology has existed for about 30 years. So he said he's a nerd. I'm also a nerd too. We read a lot. This technology has existed for about 30 years. So basically, the research has been done on it. The mRNA does not go, so I'm going to hit some rumors and some conspiracy theories while I do this. The mRNA does not touch your nucleus. In fact, it's a one-way system. Your nucleus sends out instructions to your cells, and it creates proteins that it needs. We are just giving the instructions to your immune cells to create the immunity, to teach your immune system how to kill coronavirus before it shows up in your body. Now, a lot of people ended up suffering complications and passing away simply from what's called the cytokine storm. Why did that cytokine storm happen? Well, on the 7th or 8th day of infection, your body gets infected with COVID. On the 7th or 8th day, your army, your immune system, is battling this virus to the point where it can't take it anymore. So it does what's called a cytokine storm. Let's put it this way, back to my analogy with the army. It's like a nuclear bomb being dropped. And with a nuclear bomb, you hurt your enemy and you hurt yourself. And that's what basically happens with a cytokine storm. Now, mRNA technology, he said it was wrapped in butter, in oil. For anyone who's concerned about the ingredients of these vaccines, you can go on Google, because everybody loves to use Google. I mean, we've got doctors graduating from Google University now. You go on Google, you type in Pfizer, COVID vaccine, what's in it, and it'll give you. You can even go to the official website. And it's basically, just to keep it simple, the mRNA wrapped in lipid and fat, basically, some sugar and some salt. That's it. Now, just to give you hope for the future with mRNA technology, they are trying to cure HIV and breast cancer. There are studies coming out now that there's so many breakthroughs. And in regards to another conspiracy theory that needs to be addressed is they're trying to kill us. Well, let's think about it this way. Why would all the leaders in the world, all the people in the army, 95% of doctors in America, why would they push the vaccine on all of us if they wanted to kill us? There'd be no one left to treat or protect anyone. So really think about that before you go on your WhatsApp groups, the Facebook groups. And I'm just going to end with this. And this is there's a lot of frustration in the medical community because you dedicated your whole life to this, to learn medicine and learn about the human body. So I'm going to leave with this. When your house is on fire, are you going to argue with the fireman on what he's going to do to save your house? I don't think so.
Thank you for those amazing points that you brought up, doctors, and for dispelling the myths and busting all the myths and bringing clarity to this whole situation. Jazakallah khair to our dear shuyukh who brought up the spiritual Islamic perspective, the doctors, the professionals in the field who are able to give their insight, Sister Bayan, our health educator, and the Passaic County Department of Health. Thank you so much, and Jazakallah khairan for coming.
I had my Arabi medicine
I know,
ready.
right? One thing I should mention that I read an article yesterday that said by December, they're looking to have the vaccine approved for any child 5 and older.
There are studies. There are studies right now for 5 to 12 years old.
Which is right there.
Yeah.
Yes. You're welcome.
Sure.
So the booster is basically the vaccine, the same one we took before. It's just we're trying to increase our immunity again. So what the doctor said before about antibodies, your body creates antibodies. It's one of the lines of defense against the virus. So full disclosure, I took my vaccine December and January. And then I waited after 14 weeks, my immune system created antibodies, and that was the highest it created. Now, some studies are showing that, let's say that there's a level of 2,000, right? Let's just give that number. The level of antibodies in someone's body would be 2,000. Over time, it goes down. People who got the natural infection developed antibodies, but studies showed that within 3 to 6 months, those antibodies disappeared. And there have been cases of people getting reinfected with coronavirus who had it, especially with the Delta. Why? Because the antibodies drop after a period of time. Now, with the vaccines, they're showing that the antibodies are dropping, but the Delta strain is a different mutation to the point where you need to get another shot to reboost your immune system to keep you protected. And there's really no difference between it. It's pretty much the same vaccine. It's just you're getting it just as a booster.
Yeah, so the way right now, if you've not been vaccinated, you get your first shot if you're getting the Moderna or Pfizer, and then 3 or 4 weeks later you get your second shot. The goal now is within a year after your second shot, you get the same vaccine a third time, a booster. It's just your immune system, the amount of antibodies, it goes down. We just want to go down and bring it back up, especially during the winter, because during the winter there's people are in the houses, there's more sick people, it's easier to transmit, so it's just to give you more strength, basically.
So, so you're saying that we might need 3 if you haven't been vaccinated yet? Is that what you're asking?
No, she's just asking what the booster is.
Okay, because like, for example, we've been vaccinated, we're gonna get a booster shot soon. But if someone who I know people that just got their first shot last week. Okay.
Yeah, you won't need it for another year. Probably.
I think like eight months to a year, you won't need your third shot till then. And the thing is, since you got yours now, I'm gonna say this, you're actually lucky because you're gonna be covered for the winter, and you might not need to take another shot till next winter. Because like the doctor said, it's getting colder, and the amount of cases are gonna go up because we go inside, and it's gonna follow the same pattern as the flu with the way it spreads, in the winter especially. The shot? So I took mine in December and January. It's been about 8 months. I'm gonna need to take a booster, especially because I'm a medical professional. Because we work with patients and we're interacting with so many people, and we don't wanna bring it home. So our antibodies are actually gotten lower, and the studies that came out showed that anyone who's gotten the shot 8 months ago should get the booster. Yes. So right now.
Yeah, go ahead.
So she asked, the sister asked a question about if you started on one vaccine series like Moderna or Pfizer or Johnson & Johnson, can you cross over? This is, from what I've read and I understood, is you stay on the same series. If you took Johnson & Johnson, Johnson & Johnson is coming out with a booster, Moderna's coming out with a booster, and Pfizer is coming out with their booster. And what I understand is you are not to cross over into another one unless your doctor gives you other advice. And I don't know what the doctor would like to say.
I think it makes sense to just stick with what you have. I actually, I'm a big supporter of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine.
Really?
I am. I actually think a lot of people, it gets a bad flack for a reason. And there's a really good video I recommend anybody who's interested in talking about the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. Vox, V-O-X, it's like a news station website. They created a video about the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. The first wave last year in 2020 started in March, and it started slowing down in May or June. In May of that year is when Pfizer and Moderna started their clinical trial. Most of the testing for Moderna and Pfizer were during the summer when the first wave slowed down. And then the second wave started around October. Johnson & Johnson didn't start their clinical trial till around September, when the second the second wave was starting. So they were testing their vaccine during a higher wave. So the chance is there's a higher likelihood that you'll catch the vaccine on a high wave. And I think if you actually go, and somebody did an analysis of comparing the Johnson & Johnson data to the Moderna and Pfizer, it would actually have a much higher efficacy rate if it was tested during the same time. It's a very interesting data, and it has less side effects. The people who were worried about clots, COVID is a clotting disease. I can't tell you how many, 25 to 30% of people with COVID come in with clots, because COVID in the blood, the virus helps create clots. So anybody who tells me, well, I got a clot, or some people are worried about clots on Johnson & Johnson, well, there was 7 people out of 7 million in the initial study, 7 people out of 7 million. Mind you, the normal people walking around, truck drivers, people who are sitting down a lot, get clots at much higher rate because their blood just pools. And so essentially, the Johnson & Johnson is not as, it's actually a much, much better vaccine, less side effects, and it's only one shot. So you don't need to, a patient who's non-compliant, a patient who's scared, one is easier, quicker, and better. And I do think, answering your question, it's a very good question to ask. The science, there's no scientific data to say what happens if you switch from one vaccine series to the other, but I would think it would probably be best to just stick to what you took, especially because when these researches are done, they're done based off of you took the Pfizer vaccine and now they're giving boosters and seeing how your body responds. So probably best to just stick to the one you initially got.
And please, if you took one vaccine already and you completed the series, there's no need to take another one right away. There was a case of a gentleman who crossed state lines and got all three. There's no need for that. One is enough. One type of vaccine is more than enough.
I would like to announce that we, in the county department, health department, that we offer vaccine, Johnson & Johnson and Moderna. And of course, the booster shot for who are eligible at this moment. The people who are not eligible at this moment, they can wait at 8 months at least to get their booster shot from the second dose that they got. And please do not forget to sign in for this workshop. And if you have any questions, I have my business card right here. You can come, and I'm very happy to help any of you to answer any of the questions regarding the presentation or any further questions regarding COVID or the vaccine, and we'll share the contact information for the doctors as well. Thank you so much for coming and attending.
Jazakallah khairan, and thank you for staying to answer those additional questions, doctors. That shows you the dedication that these doctors have, and we really appreciate everything they do out in the medical field. Thank you, Sister Bayan, and the Passaic County Department of Health. Thank you so much, and Jazakallah khairan. Assalamu alaikum.